Ahoy, matey, and welcome back to the Commodore's table. Today, we'll be speaking about how to stop working on the railroad and embrace the chaos. But before you do, make sure you join the crew, subscribe, and let's hoist the black flag. Railroading is one of the worst things that can happen in a gaming group. And what I mean by railroading is that the tracks only go one way. That's it. There's no deviating from it. And this is part of the issue I have with modules and not being able to stray from modules. Sometimes you pick up a gaming module, and this happens all the time. It's a module, if you're not too familiar with it, or if you're a new player. A module is a pre-built dungeon with all of the monsters pre-generated, and everything's built for a specific power level and tier, or specific classes, that sort of stuff. These modules cause game masters to think in one direction. If you're a game master and you're using a module, just remember you can always deviate from it to fit your story. And these were helpful for me when I was newer at gaming, because the things were already pre-built and I didn't really know how to build encounters and build stuff like that. So, but there's a tendency with modules to keep on track, and that's it. You just stick to the one thing. And this kind of brings me to the next point of railroading, is that it's just not fun. It's not fun because it's one-dimensional. It's all of your NPCs have just one answer for all the things. And a good example of railroading is video games. Video games are a great example. See, the problem with video games is that they can't account for a lot of player chaos. And the games that do, like the Fallout series, Skyrim, that sort of stuff, those are really beloved games because they allow a lot of freedom to act, and a lot of freedom for players to just do what they want to do, kind of an open world sandbox sort of thing. You don't get that in some games. I really liked games like Knights of the Old Republic, for instance. That was a good game series, but the problem was it was just a little railroady. I mean, there's only so many endings to it, and it kind of sucked. In that you couldn't just do whatever you wanted. You had to follow the progression of the game through. And I understand there's only so many lines of code that people can write, but we're people, and we don't have to follow that strict structure that you see in games. What we can do is we can allow the story to unfold. So part of allowing the story to unfold is embracing the chaos. And these are two really interconnected points. As a game master, you really need to be able to embrace whatever's going to come your way. And when I create campaigns, what I like to do is I like to create principles for the world. I'll have factions. I'll have certain villains that'll pop up. A lot of times in my campaigns too, I have villains I don't even expect. And this is actually a really hilarious thing that happens in a lot of my campaigns, is that I talk a lot about this, how players latch onto things. Allow your players to latch onto things. There might be a fight where one of the guys survives. Maybe he's a low-level orc, and the players want to scare him, or he asks for mercy because he's kind of cowardly. Well, the player, the paladin goes, okay, I'll grant you mercy to change your ways and all that. And the orc goes off. Have him come back. He can level up from that too. Just like the players level up. Take that orc template. Maybe he is, an orcish rogue, and have him just dog the players. That orc can keep dogging the players. And then all of a sudden the players are just like, I hate this guy. He keeps coming back. And because he's a rogue, and because you play him intelligently, right? He is going to take pot shots from a long distance. He's going to sneak in. He's going to steal stuff from the players. Maybe the players are at an inn one night, and they're downstairs drinking, and all their equipment's upstairs. Okay, orc comes up and he just grabs some loot from them. Maybe the orc hires people to steal from the players. The orc can start becoming this other villain, and they can hate him so much. And you could have some other villain that you've planned out meticulously, and the players don't even care about him. They're like, whatever, we'll let another adventuring party deal with him. We want to deal with this idiot over here who keeps giving us problems. I love that. I love that. And you should too, because it allows the players to tell the story as well as the GM. So some of the things that I use in embracing the chaos is just having these general templates for bad guys. And here's a great example. You have different factions. So you know there's a bandit faction in the area. You know there's an orc faction. And you know that there is maybe some sort of like goblins or something like that. What you can do is you can create a template. You can have a goblin fighter, a goblin shaman, and a goblin rogue. And then you can have an orc barbarian, an orc leader, and then you can have low-level bandits, kind of like bandit team leaders, and then the overall bandit lord. And by having that, instead of having these actual hard and fast characters that are pre-built, you have templates that you can use. So whenever you need monsters or encounters or things like that, you can just spam them out there. And that helps to create a more freeform campaign. Also, one of the storytelling elements that I like to use is allowing the players a certain degree of freedom in how they operate. So one thing I use is make successes super successful. And the way you can make them super successful is by allowing the players to describe the way in which they succeed. Give them a certain degree of freedom. You can always say, okay, that didn't really work out like that, or that's too much. You can rein it in as a GM. Or you can allow it to go and then role play it out. That's another cool way to do it. But making successes super successful, that gives the players a certain amount of description. The other thing I like to use is a hero point kind of system. And, you see this in a lot of game systems, but one of the things that's really fun is you get a hero point, and maybe you get one every level. And they're exceedingly rare. You don't give these out unless something epic happens in the game or the players gain a level. And you allow the players a certain degree of freedom to change the world. And one way to do that is say, okay, what you have to do is you have to say, I'm spending a hero point. So they spend the hero point. Then, after they spend the hero point, it's already expended. They can't get it back. Then they describe how they're changing the world. Now, I had a campaign in which it was a sci-fi campaign. They were flying an aircraft, and 2 other aircraft were behind them shooting at them. Well, they had already shot up a building. And one of the players uses a hero point and says, all of the damage I did to the building causes the building to collapse. This is like a 50-story skyscraper. So the skyscraper starts collapsing. And I say, but I'm going to turn my aircraft straight up and fly through the building as it collapses, and it's going to hit the other aircraft. And I go, okay, cool. But it doesn't end there. They have to make attack rolls, and they have to make pilot checks, and they have to make skill checks to try and do this, because flying through a building is a crazy thing. The building's coming down now. They spent the hero point. They called the building down. Okay, I'm cool with that. However, you can make saving throws for the building to see how long the building takes to fall. The other aircraft get saving throws. It's not guaranteed that the aircraft are going to be destroyed. And the point of this system is to make it so that any hero point spent cannot affect a dice roll. If you make it so they can't affect a dice roll, then what you allow yourself to do is allow some chaos in the door, and you get some GM chaos too. So in the case of the building, they had to turn vertically and fly through the building. So I set a difficulty for flying through the building. And they had to shoot out the windows because there's windows coming down, and some of the players, the gunners in the aircraft, have to shoot through the building while the pilot is flying up through the building. Made for a super epic scene. One of the aircraft failed. The building hit the enemy aircraft, crushed that enemy aircraft, The second one actually made it into the building but got wedged in the building. The building came down, and the door gunners were still firing out of the other aircraft as they're going through. Super epic chase scene. Totally changed what happened inside the context of the campaign. So embracing this chaos and allowing a mechanic for it even, super helpful. So having the ability to change and mold things around is super helpful. The next part of it, I would say, is you need to prepare, if you're the game master, for the chaos. And the way in which you prepare is you have to have random name generators and also have a picture library. I do this all the time, and my players will latch onto this stuff. It's super cool. I have some sort of merchant or some sort of NPC that shows up. Players latch onto them. They go, "Hey, what's your name, by the way?" A lot of times they won't care about their name. They'll just, do a transaction and that'll be it. They'll go to the general store. Okay, they have cheese. You buy cheese, whatever, you're out. But they might have some superior cheese or something like that. Well, if you're going to have something unique, you have to have someone unique. And they'll ask the person's name. Make a note of that name. They might come back to that person. That person might have a mission for them. And on top of that, having a photo that's available, and there's a lot of different resources for this, and I'll actually talk about this in another video, how to take a photo and just blast out an NPC real quick. But having a photo that they can attach to that person actually burns that into their mind and makes the campaign a little bit more in depth, because they know, hey, there's this cheese seller over here that sells really good cheese, and they could be in another kingdom and want to impress the king or impress some noble. So they say, hey, here's this cheese from this other kingdom, and this guy makes it, and he's got a magical cow or something like that. And especially if the players lie like that and say, oh, he's got a magical cow, you can incorporate that in the campaign. Especially, I did do this with fighters. So in this example, if a fighter says, oh, there's this magical cow, well, you can either say you need to make a bluff check, or you can say you need to make a bluff check and the noble cannot believe him because the fighter fails. But it could actually be true, and you could allow it to happen. But the players don't know that the cow is magical yet. And if you wanted that to happen, where the cow is magical, the noble could say, take me to this cow. I want to know where this magical cheese comes from. And then all of a sudden, you just created an adventure out of that. Embracing the chaos can lead to some really cool role-playing opportunities and some really cool side quests, because a lot of times you have players that love side quests. One of my players loves them. He will side quest all day long. He does not care about the main campaign. He just wants to do cool stuff in the world and be a part of the world. So that's a way that you can incorporate it in there to embrace the chaos and just allow for a little more role-playing depth in your games. So I hope that helps. If you have questions about this, drop those below, and I will see you out there.